On November 28, 1983, a 77-year-old man sat in a conference room at the Department of Justice in Washington and signed a piece of paper. That paper said he was giving up his American citizenship and leaving the country for good. His name was Arthur Rudolph. 15 years earlier, he'd been in charge of building the Saturn V rocket. That was the rocket that carried Neil Armstrong to the moon. NASA gave him its highest civilian honor. The Army gave him a medal for exceptional service. And now the Justice Department was giving him a choice. Give up your citizenship quietly, or we prosecute you for war crimes. The evidence against him came from files that were supposed to have been destroyed 40 years earlier. Most people know the basic story of Operation Paperclip. After World War II, the United States brought German scientists to America to help win the Cold War and the space race. But what most people have never been told is what was actually written in those scientists' files before the government changed them. Over 1,600 personnel files were rewritten, cleaned up, or made up from scratch by a small military intelligence office that almost nobody has heard of. The original files told a very different story. What did those originals actually say? And how did a small office with fewer than 24 people manage to override a direct order from the president? To understand how this happened, you have to understand what the Allies were dealing with in the spring of 1945. Germany had spent the last decade building the most advanced weapons research program on Earth. The V-2 missile, built at a research base on the Baltic Sea coast called Peenemünde, was the world's first long-range guided rocket. It flew at 3,500 miles per hour. It could reach 50 miles into the sky and hit a target 200 miles away. London had no way to stop it. Between September 1944 and March 1945, Germany launched more than 3,000 V-2 rockets at England, Belgium, and France. Roughly 9,000 people were killed. But rockets were only part of the picture. German scientists were also ahead of the Allies in jet engines, chemical weapons, nerve gas, aviation medicine, and submarine technology. As the war was ending, one question mattered more than almost anything else. Who was going to get these scientists first? The Soviet Union was asking the same thing. The Red Army was pushing in from the east. American and British forces were pushing in from the west. Scattered across Germany were hundreds of labs, weapons factories, and the people who knew how all of it worked. On July 20th, 1945, the Joint Chiefs of Staff approved a program called Operation Overcast. The goal was simple: find Germany's best scientists and engineers and bring them to work for the American military. A new office called the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, JIOA, would run the program. The JIOA was supposed to build a file on each scientist, check their background, and arrange to bring them to the United States. But there was one big condition. President Truman signed off on the program in August 1945. But he added one rule: no Nazis. Anyone who had been a real part of the Nazi Party, not just a name on a membership roll, was supposed to be automatically disqualified. Same for anyone who had actively supported Nazi militarism. This was not a suggestion, it was a direct order from the president, and it lined up with the agreements the United States had signed with Britain and the Soviet Union at Potsdam and Yalta. The problem was that most of the scientists the JIOA wanted would have failed that test. So the JIOA did not push back on the order. They did not ask for an exception. They just changed the files. Here's how it worked. The JIOA would build a file on each scientist using reports from Army counterintelligence, the State Department, and Allied occupation records. The first drafts of those files were often ugly. Scientists were flagged as security risks. They were identified as Nazi Party members. Some were labeled, in the JIOA's own words, a menace to the security of the Allied forces. These assessments were based on Nazi Party records, SS personnel files, and intelligence gathered during the occupation. The JIOA took those files and rewrote them. They made up new work histories and political backgrounds. They removed anything about Nazi Party membership. They deleted SS connections. They cut out every detail that would have triggered Truman's ban. A scientist who had been labeled an active Nazi in the original file became, in the new version, someone who joined the party reluctantly and never really participated. Files that documented SS membership were replaced with versions that did not mention it at all. The program got a new name. Overcast became Operation Paperclip. Most sources say the name came from the paperclips that JIOA officers attached to the files of scientists whose records were, as one memo put it, troublesome and needed to be cleaned up before the State Department would approve their visas. Operation Paperclip. Think of the JIOA as a small-town building inspector who decided permits were taking too long, so instead of changing the building code, he just started forging the inspection reports. Except the building code was a presidential order, and the buildings were former war criminals. The first group to arrive included over 100 rocket scientists sent to Fort Bliss, Texas, and White Sands, New Mexico. They were officially listed as War Department special employees. The most famous among them was Wernher von Braun. Von Braun had run the V-2 rocket program at Peenemünde. He held the rank of major in the SS. His original security file called him a potential security risk. By the time his paperwork reached the State Department, those details were gone. But there was another set of documents that the JIOA either never found or chose to ignore. Those documents would stay hidden for decades. When they finally came out, they destroyed the story that the paperclip scientists were reluctant bystanders who had no choice but to go along with the Nazis. You see, the V-2 rocket was not built by engineers in a lab. It was built by slave laborers in an underground factory carved into the inside of a mountain. In August 1943, the British Royal Air Force bombed the Peenemünde research base. After that, the Nazi leadership decided to move V-2 production underground. They picked a converted fuel depot inside the Konstein mountain near Nordhausen in central Germany. The factory was called Mittelwerk. The concentration camp that fed its workers was called Mittelbau-Dora. About 60,000 prisoners were sent through the Dora camp system between August 1943 and April 1945. They came from Buchenwald, Auschwitz, and camps across occupied Europe. They worked 14-hour shifts in tunnels that were wet, dark, and choked with dust. In the early months, they slept inside the tunnels on wooden bunks cut into the rock walls. They were starved. They had no medical care worth mentioning. Prisoners suspected of damaging rocket parts were hanged from the factory cranes in front of the other workers. More than 20,000 of those 60,000 prisoners died. Think about that number. More people died building the V-2 rocket than the V-2 rocket ever killed. And this is where the original, unaltered documents matter most. On April 12, 1943, Arthur Rudolph, then the lead production engineer at Peenemünde, wrote a memo. In it, he recommended that the rocket program start using concentration camp prisoners as forced labor. Rudolph had visited the Heinkel aircraft factory in Oranienburg and watched how the SS supplied slave workers from the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. He liked what he saw. He wrote it up and recommended the same arrangement for the V-2 program. The first prisoners arrived at Peenemünde on June 17, 1943. After production moved underground, Rudolph became the operations manager at Mittelwerk. He ran the V-2 assembly line. A memo from June 22, 1944, made it policy for engineers to report anyone they suspected of sabotage to the SS. The punishment for sabotage was hanging. Then there is the memo from August 15, 1944. In that document, von Braun wrote about his trip to the Buchenwald concentration camp. He went there to personally pick out prisoners and arrange for them to be sent to Dora to work on V-2 production. The man who would become the most celebrated rocket scientist in American history walked into a concentration camp and selected slave laborers. Remember those two documents? The Rudolph memo from April 1943 recommending slave labor. The von Braun memo from August 1944 describing his visit to Buchenwald. Both were in the original files. Neither was in the versions the JIOA sent to the State Department. On April 11, 1945, soldiers from the 104th Infantry Division reached Mittelbau-Dora. They found roughly 3,000 dead bodies and about 750 prisoners, still alive but too weak to stand. The SS had already forced the rest of the camp to march out on foot. Most of those marchers died on the road. One of the American soldiers was a rifleman from Huntsville, Alabama, named John Risen Jones. He took photographs of what they found. He helped bury the dead. Years later, he would learn that the German rocket scientists who had been brought to his hometown to work at Redstone Arsenal were the same men who had run the factory where those bodies came from. Meanwhile, von Braun and about 500 of his team had already surrendered to the Americans. Von Braun had planned it carefully. He hid key technical documents in an abandoned mine and offered himself to the U.S. Army as a prize. By late 1945, the first Paperclip scientists were settling in at Fort Bliss. The program went far beyond rockets. The JIOA brought in chemists, physicists, medical researchers, and biological weapons experts. At least 58 former Luftwaffe doctors ended up working at a secret Army Air Force's medical research center in Heidelberg. Some of those doctors had been directly involved in medical experiments on concentration camp prisoners. This facility was running less than 150 miles from Nuremberg, where other Nazi doctors were on trial for the same kinds of crimes. One of those doctors was Hubertus Strughold. He later became known as the father of space medicine. The Air Force named a research library after him at Brooks Air Force Base in Texas. Then documents from the Nuremberg trial surfaced that connected him to deadly medical experiments on prisoners at Dachau. The library was renamed. Another was Walter Schreiber, a former Nazi general involved in biological weapons experiments. Schreiber was brought to America and given a job at the Air Force Aviation Medicine School in Texas. In 1952, a survivor of the Ravensbrück concentration camp named Janina Iwanska saw his picture in a newspaper and publicly testified that he had been present during experiments performed on her. Instead of investigating, the government quietly shipped Schreiber off to Argentina before the story could blow up and expose the whole Paperclip program. Kurt Davis, another SS member, became the first director of the Kennedy Space Center. His file had been cleaned. His SS membership was erased before the State Department ever saw his application. By the time the JIOA shut down in 1962, it had processed over 1,600 scientists and their families. Over 1,600 government personnel files had been created, changed, or fabricated. A direct presidential order had been quietly ignored for 17 years. And the paper trail that proved it was buried in classified archives that nobody outside the intelligence community was looking at. The program stayed mostly secret through the entire Cold War. The first real public scrutiny came in the 70s when Cold War attitudes started to soften and scholars began paying closer attention to the Holocaust. In 1979, a survivor of Dora published a memoir that brought new attention to the forgotten camp. Then came the investigations. In the early 80s, the Justice Department's Office of Special Investigations started looking into Paperclip scientists who were still alive. They pulled records from the Army's intelligence files at Fort Meade. These were records that should have been cleaned up and consolidated decades earlier. But what the investigators found were the originals, the files with the Nazi Party memberships, the SS connections, the operational memos that the JIOA had cut out of the versions they sent to the State Department. Remember the Rudolph memo from April 1943? The one where he recommended using slave labor? And the von Braun memo from August 1944? The one describing his personal visit to Buchenwald to select prisoners? The Office of Special Investigations found them both. Arthur Rudolph, the man who had run the Saturn V program, the rocket that sent human beings to the moon, was now looking at documented proof of what he had done at Mittelbau-Dora. On November 28, 1983, he signed an agreement to leave the country and give up his citizenship. He moved back to Germany in 1984. Under the deal, he was not charged with any crime. His wife and daughter kept their American citizenship. His government pension of $50,000 a year kept getting paid. He spent the rest of his life trying to get his citizenship back. A group called Friends of Arthur Rudolph, based in Huntsville, Alabama, ran a public campaign on his behalf. Canada would not let him into the country. They said he was a suspected war criminal. He died in Hamburg on January 1st, 1996. He was 89. Von Braun had died in 1977. 7 years before the investigation started. He was never formally investigated. In 1999, the National Archives opened the Rudolph Files to the public, 165 pages covering the years 1945 to 1958. For the first time, anyone could compare what the JIOA had sent to the State Department with what the original intelligence reports had actually said. Now, there is a fair argument that Operation Paperclip was a defensible call. The Soviet Union was running its own version of the same program, and they were not asking whether their recruits were Nazis. The Cold War was real. The argument that America needed every edge it could get is not unreasonable, and some historians have pointed out that the paperclip scientists did make real contributions. The Saturn V is still one of the greatest engineering achievements in history. It would not have existed in the same form without the Peenemwende team. It is also true that not every paperclip scientist was a war criminal. Some were engineers and technicians who worked in German labs and had little or no connection to the camp system. The program was not one size fits all, and the level of personal guilt varied a lot from person to person. But what the documents show is that the JIOA did not bother making those distinctions. They did not separate the clean files from the dirty ones. They rewrote all of them. They made up fake biographies for scientists who had been flagged as threats. They went around a presidential order, not through official channels, not through policy arguments, but by falsifying government records, and they did it for 17 years. Operation Paperclip was not a rogue operation or an intelligence failure. It was a bureaucratic decision. Military intelligence officers decided that winning the Cold War mattered more than following the president's own rules about war criminals. The files prove they knew exactly what they were erasing, and the fact that it took the Justice Department nearly 40 years to find the originals tells you how close the erasure came to working. The most effective cover-ups are not the ones that destroy the evidence. They are the ones that replace it with something more convenient. Over 1,600 scientists came through Operation Paperclip. We know what happened to a handful of them. Which of the others do you think deserves a closer look? If you want to keep finding what the documents actually said, subscribe. New investigations every week.